Hi there.
Hello, welcome back to Ycft. We've came to the end of our Stephen King project for this year, our fourth one. It's mad, we've been doing this for nearly 4 years now.
I know.
So we've talked about Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. We've talked about Stephen King's The Shining. Now we are talking about the 2019 sequel to The Shining, Doctor Sleep. It is based on the novel of the same name that Stephen King published in 2013. Mm-hmm. So that really nice ending at the end of Stephen King's The Shining miniseries that Danny had, scrap that.
Yeah, it's very sad.
It is. So apparently this idea came about, was it a book signing?
It was either a book signing or a convention that Stephen King was at, and a fan went over to him and was like, so what's Danny Torrance up to these days? And apparently that's what got Stephen King thinking, what is Danny up to? And he came to the conclusion that he was not up to anything good. Danny Torrance is not in a good place anymore.
No, he's not. So that's how we got Doctor Sleep. So you've read this one before?
Yes, I read it not long after it was first published.
Yeah.
So over 10 years ago now.
I listened to the audiobook last year. Very much enjoyed it. And watching the film, which I really like as well. I think it's a really good film, really good adaptation. I saw it in the cinemas, but this is only the second time I've watched it. I think you watched it more than that.
Yeah, so I can't remember if I saw it with you first or if I saw it with my mum first.
Yeah.
I think you and me might have seen it together first, and then I was like, oh, my mum would really like this, we should go.
Yeah.
So my third time.
So it was directed by Mike Flanagan, who at this point, the only Stephen King adaptation he'd done was Gerald's Game.
Yeah, strong start.
Very strong start, but he exploded after Haunting of Hill House.
Yes.
And has become very good at doing Stephen King adaptations. Arguably, his Midnight Mass is more of a Salem's Lot adaptation than most Salem's Lot adaptations.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah. I believe he's working on a Dark Tower.
I think that's confirmed.
And there's Life of Chuck. That's one of his as well, isn't it?
The next one that's due to be released soon, I think. Not horror adaptation, but King.
And it was I remember being very well reviewed. I really enjoyed it, but I think it did just okay at the box office.
I loved it from the get-go. I mean, this is the end of the Stephen King saga for this year. Every adaptation I love. Yeah. Doctor Sleep is no exception.
Yeah.
I think it's a brilliant adaptation.
The plot of this one is, Danny is not in a good place.
No, it's many years on.
It's many years on. He's a fully grown man at this point, raging alcoholic. He basically drinks to dull his shine and to deal with the trauma of what happened to him. His mum has sadly passed away at this point, so he's basically going from like job to job, town to town,
kind of living a bit
surviving.
Of a life.
Surviving is a better word, not really living. Like when we first meet the character, he wakes up after a night out where he's went home with some woman, spent all his money on a bunch of coke,
got blitzed out of his mind,
got completely blitzed out of his mind, and sees that she's not living in a great state, but there is also a child there,
a little toddler,
and he robs her. He takes her money and goes. And in the book, it's kind of worse than that, because when he goes into the kitchen and the kid's reaching for some leftover drugs on the table, thinking that it's candy.
It's a new life.
And that is, he's got some bruises on him and a full diaper as well. So he just kind of puts her to bed. And that's the lowest that the character kind of falls to. And it's something that, in the book anyway, impacts his decisions across like the rest of the film, trying to make up for the bad that he's done.
Uh-huh.
The other main character in the film is a little girl called Abra, who is also very strong with The Shining.
Yes.
Abra gains the attention of a group of people known as the True Knot, led by Rose the Hat. And they are essentially almost like a form of vampire. They feed on The Shining, or they call it steam. But the way to get the best steam is from children. They said the steam kind of deteriorates as they get older.
Yeah, it's like tainted.
Tainted. Yes, tainted by life, essentially. But they have to torture them. Pain gives the purest steam.
Yeah.
All these people would have started off human at some point, and they all have abilities that are related to their shining.
Yeah.
So they'd go through this process to become a member of the True Knot, and essentially
eat well, stay young, live long.
So the more people they kill, the more steam they ingest, the longer they'll live for, and more amplifies their abilities. it keeps them young. Like there's Grandpa Flick that we think might even be like 1,000 years old.
Well, it's hinted
maybe.
at that he's seen gladiators fight. So, I mean, yeah, it dates back to the Roman times.
What's her name? Snake Eyes.
Snakebite Andy.
Snakebite Andy. Her
Pusher.
A pusher. So her ability as when she was just human was she can manipulate people into doing things
That she wants them to do.
Yeah, so we first meet her in a theatre. She's taken a man who likes younger girls on a date there. Her condition before she does anything with him is you have to take her out, take her to the movies. So she makes him go to sleep, carves some steak bites in his cheek, and I think the phrase she said is every time you look at them in the mirror, you say the phrase.
You say out loud, I like little girls.
Yeah.
And that's when the leader of the True Knot, Rose the Hat, is into like, ooh.
Yeah, so they kind of go out and recruit new people to the True Knot clan.
Yeah,
but they're very picky.
That can serve them.
That can serve them, yeah, need to serve a purpose in some way. So they're picky about who joins them. It's not stated in the film. I'm sure it probably goes into more detail in the book. But yeah, Grandpa Flick is ancient, literally like 1,000 years old. I don't know how old Rose the Hat is though, but I'm assuming she's old.
She's quite old.
But it's not a key to immortality.
No.
It's just, as you say, live long, eat well.
We don't ever see this in the film, but in the book, Abra sees what their true face is, and essentially they have one long tooth.
Ew.
Like an open mouth with a long tooth. So yeah, we never see that in the film. The True Knot, so they live in RVs and motorhomes, and they move around a lot, basically searching for steam.
Yeah.
Because some of them have the ability to kind of like sense it. We'll compare to the book quite a bit. I know in the book, they're very wealthy, and they own a lot of property, and if they don't, they'll just buy out the whole thing, so they move from like spot to spot. Makes them very very interesting villains. And I have to say, Rebecca Ferguson, who plays Rose the Hat, she's incredible.
She is sensational.
She is amazing in this.
She is fantastic. She's such well, I was going to say she doesn't really get her hands dirty. There's one scene where they all
get their hands dirty,
which is but for the, I think it's more like she has like this very subtle menace about her. It's like we know what they're capable of, and we know what they've done, and we know what they must have done over centuries in order to survive to this point. But she's just there's also just such like a calmness about her, and it belies like such a nefarious awfulness about her. And yet I really think, like, the last time we watched it, I really do think, like, there's a good argument to be made that the True Knot are some of, like, the most despicable movie villains ever.
Just because of what it is they do.
Because of what it is they do and how much they relish in doing
Well,
it.
they see humans as cattle. They call them rubes. So it's like they don't see us as, actual anything of matter. So Abra, she's also getting the attention of Danny.
Of Danny!
Who at this point he's moved to a new town.
Yeah.
Recovering alcoholic at this point. He's got a job at a mixture of like he does some shifts in his little tiny town. It's like a little miniature town. Drives the train, and he works in a hospice where he gets a nickname of Doctor Sleep.
Yeah.
So there's this cat there called Izzy who can kind of predict when people are going to die. That's the reputation this cat has. And he goes and sits with people and essentially falls into the role of like helping them pass over, and they almost end up being calmer knowing that he's there, and that's why he gets the nickname Doctor Sleep.
Dr. Sleep, yeah.
I told you I'm not a doctor.
Oh, I think you are. Doctor Sleep.
So he's found purpose in his life.
Yeah, so he's found purpose. This is him making up for the wrong that he's done and finding a use for his shine, which he hasn't really... It's kind of like a muscle. He hasn't trained it in a long, long time.
But he also attends AA, which keeps him on track.
Yes.
As well.
Yeah. We haven't even mentioned who Danny's actually played by.
No, we haven't.
Very famous actor. He's played by Ewan McGregor. Whenever I think of this movie, I always think of him going, I always called it The Shining. This is the way he delivers the line.
Yeah, I like that whole scene where they're on the bench together. Anyway.
I always called it The Shining. And yeah, we both shine.
Yes, Ewan McGregor got the part with King's Blessing, I understand.
I don't think he was the first choice, but he got King's Blessing, because King was involved in this film. I'll get to that in a second. So you kind of have a love-hate relationship with Ewan McGregor, don't you?
I have mixed feelings on Ewan McGregor. Not in this film, just in general, as an actor. Yeah, I don't really know what spawned it. I think as an actor, he has a really good eye for picking excellent projects. Like, when you look at his filmography, it's like, my God, this man has done some excellent films. Like, I adore Moulin Rouge. The Star Wars prequels are fun, and he's arguably like one of the more stronger elements of those films.
Hello there.
As well. Hello there.
Hello there.
Like, he's a decent actor. There have been some roles where I'm like, I don't know if you were like maybe the right person for that. Like, I don't know. Sometimes I think his acting is a little bit hammy. I do think he works. He does a really good job here, and you know, I'll give this to him. Full respect for any male actor, especially one of like his caliber, that is willing to go full frontal in films. And Ewan McGregor has always been very willing.
I mean, he doesn't do it in this. You see his backside, but
no, Ewan McGregor does not get naked. He doesn't step out of a tub in this full frontal.
No.
But no, I think it is good casting. It works.
I think it works. It works really well. Yeah, Stephen King was involved in the making of this film. And Mike Flanagan obviously had the job of going to him and saying, well, we kind of need it because people recognise the Kubrick film more. We have to make it a sequel to the Kubrick film.
And Stephen King was not happy about that, I imagine.
No, but he came around to it as soon as he explained what it was he wanted to do and showed him a script.
Yeah.
And that kind of won him over. And in King's words, it fixes all the issues he has with the Kubrick movie.
One thing that I read, I can't remember where I read it, but I really like this, is where the 1980 movie is all about alcoholism and addiction and going, you know, in a downward spiral. Doctor Sleep is about sobriety and recovery and making sure you're on the right path.
Yeah.
So it's like they're sort of two halves of each other, and
yeah.
I really like that. I think that's true.
I like that. And the book especially goes into a lot of detail about Danny's struggles.
Yes, he basically in a way turns into his dad.
Yeah, if anything, he's actually a worse drunk than his dad. He
opts not to have a family. You know, he's doing this on his own.
The opening of this film, we see some amazing recreations from. Obviously, they recast young Danny, and the actress that got to play Shelley Duvall does a really good job.
Alex Esso, who frequently collaborates with Flanagan, she's been in quite a few of his works. She does a stellar job as Shelley Duvall. There's a physical resemblance, like a passing resemblance, but it's the voice, you know, the Danny.
Yeah.
Like the breathiness.
Where did you go? Huh? You scared me half to death.
The actor they got to play
Halloran.
Oh my god, he looks so much like the original actor.
He does a very good job.
The casting in this film was perfect.
Perfect. But you're right, the recreations, like the scenes at the beginning with Danny, you know, going on his little...
Yeah.
What is that? Like a little tricycle
I
thing?
think I've heard described as a big wheel.
A big wheel.
Like similar to what Stewie Griffin rides in Family Guy.
Wait, so he was on his big wheel and he's going down, you know, the corridors. Just the recreation of the hotel is staggering.
Well,
off the bat.
Spoilers. We see the hotel at the end of the film.
Yeah.
Obviously, that'll be a big difference between book Doctor Sleep and film Doctor Sleep is, obviously, the book follows on from the original book, so the hotel would have burned down. Since we're following on from the movie, the hotel is still there. It's just a bit aged. So that's a tricky thing already that I think Flanagan balances really well. To make a faithful adaptation, but also make it a sequel to something that isn't faithful.
It's a perfect blend.
Perfect blend of the two. So they went to the Kubrick estate and got the blueprints for the original hotel and the sets that they made. And when you see the recreations of some of the rooms that they make, like the lobby, the little apartment that they all lived in, it's so accurate. It's really, really impressive. There's such a good... I mean, Mike Flanagan is a very talented filmmaker, but it's such a good attention to detail.
Staggering. I can only imagine what it must be like for the actors.
It must have been really surreal.
Very surreal, yeah.
And this is where we find out that in the aftermath of the Overlook, the spirits from the Overlook came after Danny.
Yeah, they followed him.
They followed him because they still want him. They want the power that he has. And again, the recreation of a lot of the ghosts, especially I always forget her name, the lady in the bath.
She's not.
I keep doing that because that's the movie that she did.
The shower curtain.
Yeah.
She's not named in the movies, but her name in the book is Lorraine Massey.
Yeah.
Mrs. Massey.
Halloran basically teaches them how to deal with them, and it's by storing them in boxes. And in his mind, we see it's in the maze with these like coffin-like boxes, and that's where they're all. Eventually, they stopped coming for him.
He learned the power of locking them away.
Yeah.
Yeah, mentally, just keeping them.
It's kind of like a mind palace.
It is basically, yeah. And it's this really eerie scene. I mentioned in the previous videos about how the woman in the tub just constantly freaks me out, Mrs. Massey, and Doctor Sleep again, like, it just, there's something so eerie about it. Like, where Danny, brilliant moment where him and his mum, they moved to Florida because apparently, like, she never wants to see snow ever again. And I love
Makes
that.
sense.
But they're watching cartoons together, and he just decides, I'm going to go to the bathroom, I'm going to confront... He doesn't say this, like, but...
He kind of, like, turns...
He knows she's there.
Yeah.
So he goes, and she's standing there in the tub, and she looks at him like she's ready for him. And then he just calmly shuts the door, and it's her that you hear screaming.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love that moment. It's so good.
A moment I always really liked talks to the ghost of Halloran. She gets incredibly well... Like, well, it just baffles me how much he looks like him. How much he looks like Scatman.
It's great. It's very good.
And he says, I always wanted to ask you, like...
What happens to them in those boxes? Do they die in there?
Do you care?
You know, are you bothered by this?
No, you never get an answer for it either. Doesn't matter, ultimately.
So probably one of the most memorable moments in this film is the baseball boy.
Baseball boy.
Baseball boy. You know, a kid with a shine that the True Knot take a fancy to.
This is heart-wrenching.
This apparently is one of the hardest scenes to film because Jacob Tremblay, he was quite a well-known young actor.
Yeah.
Snakebite Andy gets in his head, gets him to get into a van with strangers. Mm-hmm. And next time we see, he's tied down in an industrial state. Like, they're torturing him.
They stab him to death.
Yeah, they stab him to death slowly, eating him as they go. And Abra feels this, and this is when the True Knot discover, or at least Rose does, gets to Abra so much that she's like, "Oh, we have a looker."
Yeah, but she is concerned about that, but it also excites Rose the Hat as well, because she's not felt a powerful shine like this in a long time, and she's intrigued by this.
Crow Daddy says, "Oh, should we not recruit someone that powerful?" And Rose doesn't want anyone more powerful than her, but also at the same time, it's like they're running out of steam.
They're not
Put,
using
like,
well.
so pun intended. They describe her as she's a whale. They could live off her for decades.
I think it's the actual death of, what's he called? Like, I know Jacob Tremblay, but I think the character's called Bradley. The whole scene, I just want to linger on it for a minute, as awful as it is, just because I think Jacob Tremblay's performance is
Incredible.
truly something. It's harrowing to watch, to the extent where I think it really freaked out the actors as well.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I read somewhere that Rebecca Ferguson was like, we only want to do one take of this because we actually just can't do this over and over again. We don't want to.
She doesn't like to do projects with children in peril, but she made an exception for this one because she's a big fan of Stephen King's work.
Yeah, I think this is what I mean when I said earlier that there's an argument to be made that the True Knot are some of the more literally despicable villains I've certainly seen anyway. And this whole scene, it's so uncomfortably drawn out because you can hear and feel every stab wound. And then it's, you know, the fact that Abra is sensing this happen, and she's effectively watching it happen in her mind, and she can't do anything to stop it. And then it's just when you think it's sort of over, we go back to it again, and because he's not quite dead, and you know, we see his final breath disappear, and just the fact that all of them are hunched over, just, you know, consuming the steam that's leaving him, this poor little boy. And then they just bury him in a very shallow grave as well.
At this point, she's made contact with Danny, or Dan.
They've been communicating for years.
Yeah, essentially like pen pals. But he never speaks back. He writes on a chalkboard that he has on his wall. She leaves notes for him, but he doesn't like to use his shine.
No.
And when they do first meet, and I do like, it's the same in the book. He says, like, you know, a man like me meeting a young girl doesn't look good.
No.
Look, I don't mean any offense, but this day and age, a grown man sitting with a teenage girl on a park bench.
I'm Aber Stone, and if anyone asks, you're my uncle, Uncle Dan.
In the book, it's arranged. In this, she just turns up to his job. Which, yeah, that's not a good look.
Not a good look.
And she tries talking to him with her shine. He goes, no, can we use our outside voices? He's not used it in such a long time. I think it still scares him. Whereas Abra, we see from a young age, she's very powerful.
She kind of harnessed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we see her do incredible things, like she essentially looks through Rose's eyes and kind of like just follows her movements. When I love the idea that True Knot, as old and ancient as they are, she's just in a supermarket.
Yeah, she's got to get supplies.
You've got to get supplies, which tells me they eat normally as well. They can eat and drink, smoke, all that stuff.
Well, how
Hi there.
Hi there.
Because she instantly tries to get into Abra's head. You see her hand go behind, and she's like, "Get out!" and push her back. She's like, I've never been pushed back. And it's like,
Yeah.
Get out! Get out! Get out of my head! Get out!
So like the intrigue is ramping up and up and up. She wants Abra.
well, she tries to go for Abra,
Yeah.
and Abra sets a trap.
Yeah.
You see her bedroom. She's asleep, and there's like a bunch of filing cabinets. You can see Rose is like, these rubes in their cabinets. Like,
Yeah.
This was really something that she sees a lot. Like,
Yeah, these are all your memories. Like, mine's a cathedral.
Yeah.
You should see mine.
and she gets a hand trapped in one. She has to rip the skin off, and it's
Yeah.
Oh,
Very
it's
Gerald
great.
Gamesy.
they
Gerald-
swap. They swap places.
Yeah.
But Dan is initially like, do not provoke these people, because he's basically on the mindset of, do not tell people what you can do.
Because they will come.
But he has used it, like early on in his AA, he helps a doctor find a watch. Who, I have to admit, the doctor is a larger character in the book. This film kind of cuts a few characters out, but then merges a fair few together. Like Billy in the book is an older man, and it's their boss that's his what do you call him when you're giving someone a sponsor?
Sponsor.
The boss who's a sponsor, and when they eventually do go to look for the boy's body, because Abra wants them to, so that they can, put their parents' worries at ease. I say worries, like confirm, yes, your son is dead, this is where he's buried. It's the doctor that he goes with. They've merged all three of those into just Billy. Like, the doctor's a character, but we don't really see him outside of one scene. Billy kind of takes it, just streamlines the story much more. But initially Dan's like, no, I can't go to like Oklahoma or wherever it is. Like, we just have to lay low.
Yeah.
It's Halloran, the ghost of Halloran tells her you need to help her.
Yeah.
Because she is essentially what Danny could have become
For sure.
if he'd stuck with his shine and not had the experience he had as a child. She
the-
doesn't fear it the way he does.
Not had the horribly traumatic childhood.
So I think when she meets Dad, she's hoping that he can teach her things. And it must be quite disappointing to meet someone who's like, no. Don't use it. Hide away.
Yeah.
Essentially, you're telling a young girl to hide away what makes her unique.
Yeah. And we already know that it's somewhat fractious in her own family, because her mum and dad are aware that their daughter has this
Ability.
power, but they're not comfortable in dealing with it.
Hers extends to telekinesis as well.
Yes.
She made some spoons go on the ceiling. Yeah.
Abracadabra.
And they just don't want it. They just don't want to know about it.
No.
It worries them.
Yeah.
Eventually, the True Knot do kind of catch up with them. Abra is taken.
Yeah. It's a great sequence, though.
Oh, it is, and this is where the point like Dan is fully on board, and he's trying to help, and at one point takes over Abra's body and talks to Crow Daddy through Abra.
Yeah.
It's something that he's never tried before. Again, so he's now stretching his shine for the first time. Yes, it's a really good scene. There's so many moments in this film that are just like really well put together. Like whenever the True Knot cycle, which is when they are dying, and you see them like fading away, but in stages, and their bodies are convulsing.
It looks painful.
It's hard to describe, but I'll have the clip playing over the top anyway to show. It's really, really well done.
Yeah.
I do have to go into some key changes that had to be made from the book in order to make the film work. The big one is the setting of the ending. In this film, like I mentioned earlier, it takes place in the Overlook. I love it when they get there. Like, Danny takes Abra there after the rest of the True Knot have been killed. They seem pretty easy to kill, to be fair, just a couple of bullets. And then Rose is mad. She ingests all the remaining steam she has, and she's so she's our most powerful, and chases them down. So they set the stage in the film. He makes Abra wait outside. I don't want you in there any longer than you have to be, but I have to go and wake this place up. And I love it walking through the Overlook and everything coming alive. He unleashes all the ghosts of the Overlook and uses them to help defeat Rose. In the novel, it's incredibly different because the Overlook burned down. And they take Abra to the site because they own a campsite right next to it, because they picked that spot because of essentially the evil and the power that the spot holds, but they don't know about the spirits that are there. There's actually, I think there's only like a balcony or something that's like a platform. Basically what the ending ends up being is two characters with psychic abilities battling each other. And I think it would be quite difficult to make it visually interesting.
I agree with that, yeah.
Even though like you see the internals, but it would undoubtedly keep having to cut back to two characters just stood.
Yeah. Takes away the majesty of seeing the recreation
Yeah,
of the Overlook.
whereas
again.
making it a sequel to the Kubrick one, you can have the Overlook still be there, and you can end the film with the Overlook getting blown up the way it was supposed to, and that's what King really liked.
Yeah.
The ending works so much, and I like the ending of the book, but it works as a book. It would not work as a film.
So a couple of things just to touch on. The cycling of the True Knot, so when they die. One scene in particular, Grandpa Flick's death. I think that's the first time we see one of them go. And it's not because he's been killed, it's just because, again, they're not eating well.
Yeah.
And because he is the eldest, I guess that makes him the more fragile. So essentially, it's like he's dying of old age.
Yeah.
Like, finally, over 1,000 years old. But I just wanted to bring it up because, again, just talking about how horrible the True Knot are, I think this scene, aside from the baseball boy scene, really does emphasize who they really are. In a way, you could say it's quite a sweet death scene. You know, they're all around him. They're actually getting emotional that he's finally dying. There's anything they can do. Rose comforts him. But the thing that really gets me is when he says he's scared.
Yeah.
He is scared of dying. And it's just the fact that this horrible old man has been responsible for the brutal death of how many children over the centuries?
Yeah.
Like, the hypocrisy of it is ridiculous, and you can see all of them are genuinely really scared. But then when he finally dies and he becomes steam, what do they all do?
They eat him.
They all just swarm like flies on a shit. You know, like starving, eat him. And the scene, it's so well done. But yeah, I think it tells you everything you need to know.
Yeah.
About who they are. And then, yeah, the ending of the movie back at the Overlook, I just think it's perfect. I really do. The scene where Danny goes in and, yeah, he's waking everything up and he goes to sit at the bar. The same seat that his dad did in the movie. And again, it's not Lloyd that serves him. It's his dad taking on the persona of Lloyd, the bartender.
Played by Henry Thomas.
Played brilliantly by Henry Thomas. Most of the scene is done in profile, so it works. Again, like, there's a passing resemblance, so it works.
Great prosthetic work. When it's face on, it's a bit iffy.
It's a bit iffy, but they limit that. Most
Yeah.
of it is done in profile. Such a wonderful scene, because again, it's Danny saying, you know, aren't you curious about, like, what happened to Mum? You know, like, what we've been doing over the last, how we coped without
But it's not
you.
his dad.
But it's not really his dad.
Don't you want to hear about it? She was your wife.
I think you've mistaken me for someone else. I'm just a bartender.
Oh, yeah. Just Lloyd the bartender, pouring joy at the Overlook Hotel.
I'll pour whatever you like, Mr. Torrance.
It's the Overlook trying to entice him with a drink.
And that's when we learn that, yeah, Wendy died when Danny was only like 20 or 21. So he lost his mum very young.
Yeah.
Oh, and he couldn't even look at her because to him, like, she was covered in flies.
Yeah, that's something else from the book. When people are going to die, he sees flies on them.
Yeah. Oh.
Again, something they didn't have a chance to include, but that is a really, really well done scene. Again, I think Ewan McGregor plays that scene incredibly. You're in this incredible recreation
100%.
of the ballroom.
And yeah, when Rose eventually does track them down, and she also is wandering through the hotel, it's like she sees the blood pouring through the elevator, and she just kind of is like,
yeah,
like very blasé, like that's not interesting to her.
But I love it, like she's the one coming up the stairs, and you know is like kind of ready for it, and Danny's there. He's got the axe.
Yeah, yeah.
And he ends up with a limp, as well. I love the line she says, like, "How did we miss you?"
Yeah, this is the first time that she's seen Danny. She's even aware that Danny exists. All this time she's been chasing Abra, and she's not realised, like, oh, there's one just equally, if not more powerful.
It's when she realizes, because they end up inside. They both, Danny and Abra, attack her mentally at the same time, and they're in the maze, and she assumes she's in Abra's mind. And it's like, oh no, we're in Danny's.
Yeah.
And when he releases all the ghosts, and they come for her.
This.
But then who are they going to come for after?
They do go for Danny.
Yeah, and possess him. And it's an incredible, kind of reminiscent of the Shining miniseries, actually. He has to overcome the possession.
Yeah, and there's flashes where he's lucid.
Yeah.
As well, where he, you know, becomes Danny again, but then he like goes back into being possessed, and very reminiscent of the miniseries.
Yeah. He basically takes the place of his dad at that point. Abra says to possess Danny. The first thing Danny did was turn on the boiler.
Yeah.
And all the spirits like, ah.
Oh, shit.
I don't know him. It's Dan Torrance. Made one stop as soon as he got here. To the boiler room.
Dies the way his dad was supposed to die. and the Overlook is taken down. I think that's the bit that King really liked, is using Danny as a vehicle to give the Overlook the proper ending that it needed.
King finally got to see the hotel blowing up on the big screen.
Yeah.
But I love that moment as well, where Danny decides he's gonna take out the hotel. He realizes he's gonna have to stay to make sure that happens, but he's reunited with his mum.
You see him as a young boy
Such
again.
a sweet scene, and she's just there, like the fire's kind of blazing around him, and she's just there, like, to comfort him. And that again, it's like, because we'd not long, like the day before, watched the Kubrick movie, so it was so fresh in our minds as well. And again, just like the recreation, but also the emotion is great. And I think I could totally understand why King finally was happy with it, because in a way it is the perfect blend of the 1980 movie and the heart of the book.
Yeah.
You know, like family.
Yeah.
It makes everyone happy. Like King fans, Kubrick fans, like this one just ticks all those boxes.
I'm going to jump on what you were saying about family there. Something else that's missing from the book. Abra says, when they first meet, her and Dan first meet, she says, "Oh, I'll just say you're my Uncle Dan." That's actually a really big part of the book that is completely absent from this. Again, I imagine it's just the time. I do actually think the Doctor Sleep would also work better as a series, even though I really like the film. He is her uncle. At the end of the book, he kind of reveals that he kind of always knew it in that moment that there was some sort of connection. A character whose reference is her Momo, which is actually her great grandma, who is a much bigger part of the book. Her daughter, so her grandma, died in a car crash. I think it was a car crash. Shortly after giving birth to Abra's mum, it's revealed that Jack Torrance, while he was a teacher, had an affair. God knows how many he had during his drunken phases. And the only person who knew who Abra's mum's father was Momo. And she reveals this on her deathbed to Danny. That's when Danny realizes that he is actually her uncle, and that's why they have such a psychic connection. And completely absent from this. He is literally her Uncle Dan.
Wow, I see.
Yeah. And that's why they got in touch so easily.
Yeah.
Why it also explains why she is as powerful as she is.
So Abra's mum and Danny are half siblings.
Yeah.
Okay, I see.
Yeah, they're half siblings.
I see. Yeah, I do kind of see why that was cut from the film.
That would have been so complicated, because we barely spend any time with Abra's family.
Yeah.
For a long time, we barely spend any time with Abra.
Well, I was just thinking of this now, like, sometimes the issues that I have with films that are adapted from books, or just kind of busy plots, is, you know, you've got different threads going on, and a lot of the time they don't always coalesce well. With this, you've got the True Knot, you've got Abra, and you've got Danny. I think all of them.
I think they've stripped out
very well.
They've stripped out everything they needed to make the story flow. Another big storyline is another reason why the True Knot need Abra, and it's because when they ate the baseball boy, he was unvaccinated for measles. They used to eat so often, they were essentially immune to a lot of things, but they essentially start contracting measles from, essentially, you are what you eat. Obviously, that's Stephen King weighing in on the vaccinated or unvaccinated argument, but I think it's also meant to be a commentary on, like, the AIDS epidemic.
Quite possibly, yeah.
So they think that if they get Abra and eat her, if she has been vaccinated, that will cure them. So in this one, the True Knot are mostly killed. Like, Crow Daddy's killed in a car crash done by Danny whilst looking through Abra's eyes. The rest are shot by Danny and Billy in a trap that they set.
Yeah.
Which is really, really well done. They make Abra's teddy bear look like Abra sitting on a park bench, and Snakebite Andy goes to inject it and realizes it's just a teddy bear, and then they literally just shoot them.
Yeah. Take them out one by one.
Yeah, but in the book, a lot of them slowly. There is a shootout, but it's with much fewer of them. I mean, there's only with 3 of them, and that is the time when Crow Daddy does actually get Abra around the same time. But a lot of them actually generally just die of illness from measles.
Okay, interesting.
But again, that would have been so much to add into.
Yeah.
Something that a miniseries could do is go into on the individual members of the True Knot more interesting. Imagine if you got like a backstory on each of the main ones. That would be really cool. A film just doesn't have the time. We've got essentially 2 that we made. Well, 3 True Knot that we find out stuff about, which is, well, we have Rose that we mainly follow. We don't find out much about her, but she's interesting. She's evil, and she's the leader. We have Snakebite Andy, so we know a bit about her past, and we have Crow Daddy, who is essentially the second in command. We don't really have time to learn about anybody else.
It's something that Stephen King touched on in the miniseries commentary. Weirdly, he was sort of speaking about the different formats and how whichever one you dabble in, you know, whether it's a film screenplay, whether it's a teleplay for TV or a book, they all possess different skill sets, you know, for a writer. Because with a book, you get to, you know, like there's a lot of internal thoughts and world building in that sense, you know, like what is a character thinking and what are they feeling. You don't have that luxury when you're writing characters for screen. So he's like, what you lose with interior thoughts you gain with speed. You know, it's like one thing that can be perceived as a negative, it can actually lead to a positive. It's like, okay, well, we lose that but we gain this. And I think it's what you were saying then of like, you know, picking and choosing what to take and what to leave behind. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just, even King said himself, it's like, it's not just a matter of trying to speed things along. It's, I have to. You know, you've got to leave things behind. It's expected. Yeah,
which is why Stephen King's work better lends itself to longer formats. Like it being split across 2 films really works, but it is a doorstop of a book. You could, I know we're getting Welcome to Derry, which is a prequel series, but it could also be not even just a miniseries, but a full series. And like I said in the previous video, I honestly think if they were to remake The Shining, they could do The Shining and Doctor Sleep as a not to say 2-part series, but like a selection of episodes on The Shining, a selection of episodes, a sequel selection of episodes on Doctor Sleep, and really explore all of it. Just because there is a lot that goes on in Doctor Sleep which we don't touch on. And when I'm watching the film, I don't miss it. Because I think the film flows. I think it's got really good pacing, flows well, it's well acted, the production design's incredible, and we've got an entertaining villain. That's all I need to be able to get through this film and enjoy myself.
Yeah.
Now I've read the book and I know what's missing. I want another adaptation. But then it's like, do we need one? Because we have a good film anyway.
We have a good film, but bearing in mind, it is a sequel to a movie. It's not well, it is an adaptation of the book. But, you know, like any new adaptation we get of Doctor Sleep, we're not going to get that finale in the Overlook. We wouldn't get Rebecca Ferguson coming back as Rose the Hat either.
No.
So again, it would be pros and cons.
Setting it in the Overlook was just a genius move. The fact they got King to sign off on it. Obviously, it's a place that Danny never wanted to go back to, but it's also familiar territory for him. He's picked the battleground, and Rose has no idea what she's walking into.
No. I think another reason why King acquiesced to Flanagan's pitch, you know, like it's got to be a sequel to the movie, is there is a lot of heart in Doctor Sleep.
Yeah.
And again, you know, not to compare it too much to the first film, but that is something that is noticeably absent.
Yeah.
You know, we're dealing with characters that there's not really a huge ton of affection that's shared between them, with the exception of Wendy and Danny. We're in a hotel that is just so empty with feeling. You know, there's a horrible feeling when you're inside there with these characters, and especially when you're spending so much time with Jack, especially in the second half of the film. Whereas the miniseries and Doctor Sleep, there is a lot of affection and there is a lot of heart and emotionality to the dynamics between a lot of the characters. So I think that in that sense it really does like shine through.
You also have the advantage of making it a sequel to a well-known film. Is a lot of the character development for Danny and his backstory is already there. If you were to make another adaptation now, you can't really do that unless you just make it an adaptation of the Kubrick one again. Which is, you know, a bit lazy. Well, because it's basically a legacy sequel. It's
like we said, you know, in the first video we did on this, is that the shadow of the Kubrick film looms large 45 years later.
It had the advantage of, the miniseries was good, but it also was not really the definitive version of it, and they could just do what they what they wanted. But we have seen it with Salem's Lot as well, where the first version is seen as, you know, that is Salem's Lot. And no version that's followed since has been able to stand up to it. There are probably a few others where you could make something new without the shadow of the old ones, like Children of the Corn, for example. Although I think we've got enough of those. Any future adaptation of either of these is going to have to deal with the Kubrick movie again, and this is why I think if they are going to do it, make it longer. Do a straight up fresh adaptation of The Shining, 8 to 10 episodes. You can include flashbacks, show the history of the hotel.
Yeah, that would be good.
Yeah, include everything that even... Because there's a lot that had to be taken out of the last miniseries because of, TV rules. Those rules don't exist on streaming.
No, that's true.
Yeah. And then do Doctor Sleep afterwards.
And I think we've proven, like, audiences, we do have the patience for drawn out stories. You know,
Yeah.
like 8 to 10 episodes is nothing.
Yeah.
I'd be more than happy with that. I totally understand where you're coming from, because I know you have just freshly read the book, and so to then rewatch the movie adaptation, it's very fresh in your mind. Like, oh, they left that out. They didn't include this.
But
let's
I
have to
understand
change
what I
this.
understand why. Like I say, it doesn't bother me
Yeah,
because the film's good. It would bother me if the film was bad.
yeah. For me, it's like I would always say this is like the definitive version of Doctor Sleep.
Yeah.
I think it is. It's a great, great movie.
Such a good
It
cast.
changes, it does for the better.
Yeah.
I mean, unfortunately, the film didn't do that well financially.
No, it didn't. It did okay.
I think it did okay. For people who have seen it, everyone agrees it's great.
Yeah.
It's really good. It's something of a long film. It's like 2 hours 20.
I think maybe the issue could even be in the title. We were discussing just before filming this, was like, bold of Stephen King to do a sequel to The Shining, but not have the title be related in it. Not like The Shining, Doctor Sleep.
Yeah.
And it's the same with this film. Like, a lot of people might have, if they've not seen the trailer or if they just see the poster and aren't that familiar, they might not even have been able to
Connect the dots
here.
Yeah.
Another book that I've been reading Nosferatu. And I sound like I said that weird, but it's literally spelled out like a license plate. Joe Hill. The Joe Hill, Stephen King's son's book. Charlie Mance, the bad guy of that book, references the True Knot. So there's a joint universe between father and son's works of these different creatures that exist on almost like on different planes and have supernatural abilities. And the common thread seems to be that they feed off children. The life force, because that's what he does. He feeds off the life force of children and takes them to Christmas land, and that keeps him young and keeps him alive. Very similar to what True Knot do, except theirs is a bit more final.
I like that. I mean, even just in King's works alone, there's an interconnectedness between the stories and the books and the characters. They traverse different stories.
I always get excited when I watch Pet Sematary and sing the roadside for Jerusalem's Lot.
Yeah, I know. Or like even Halloran is mentioned in It as well.
Yes, I completely forgot about that.
Yeah, I remember reading that particular segment, and I was like, "Oh, okay." I mean, it's not so much in a nice context.
No, it's not.
But
not
it's
at all.
it's still cool that King had like the foresight to do all of that.
I don't know how he remembers it. How he remembers all of this.
I know.
I bet some of it's just lucky. He might just be accidentally reusing characters. Because it's Father Callahan from Salem's Lot makes it into the Dark Tower series.
I think he said like when he came to writing Doctor Sleep, he had to refamiliarize himself with The Shining.
When did he publish The Shining?
First published 1977. One last thing, as I was saying earlier, that I really love the moment at the beginning where little Danny goes into the bathroom and locks away the lady in the tub. And I love how the film ends with Abra essentially doing the same. Like the ghosts have followed her to her home, but she knows what to do.
She knows what to do. Danny's told her what to do.
It's a lovely like closing scene.
Yeah.
She's gonna be fine. She's gonna be okay. And I also like how Ghost Danny tells her, like I know earlier I told you to, try and hide away your ability, but forget that. Shine on. Yeah.
I was like, Danny's relationship with Ghost Halloran is better than it is in the book. Because he only sees Ghost Halloran once in the book, and that's he kind of summons him. He was essentially so ashamed of where he ended up that he lost contact with him for many, many years. And when he finally decided he needed him, that's when he found out he died a few years prior.
Yeah.
Whereas this one's like he knows that he's dead. And when he's in the woman's apartment and he takes the money, you see that it's out of focus figure just saying, "Put the money back."
Yeah.
But he ignores it.
Yeah.
So you can tell like he's always kind of been the voice. He's like the angel on his shoulder, trying to steer him good, but struggling to.
Yeah. No, but Danny is at heart. Danny has always been a good person. It's just
he took some wrong path.
He took a wrong path, and had a very unlucky, very tragic childhood.
I say underlying theme. This could also be generational trauma.
Massively.
He doesn't want to pass his trauma onto Abra, but him actually just dealing with it, going through AA, going back to the Overlook, essentially dying, saves Abra from having to go through the same thing. She can now live her life without having to worry.
Yeah.
And she also she's now equipped with the tools to deal with the ghosts.
Yeah.
And the spirits that are after her.
Yeah, she's going to be fine.
She's going to be absolutely fine.
Yeah.
I actually kind of now want a sequel to Doctor Sleep, see where Abra would be.
Yeah.
As a grown-up. I think that would be interesting.
And I like the idea that Danny's watching over her as
Yeah.
well. Like again, like steering her.
Yeah.
Yeah,
another change from the book, because Danny doesn't die in the book, from what I remember.
No,
You
but
got
it works in the movie as a finale.
Yeah.
Full circle.
Do you have any more notes on this one?
No, but I love The Shining. I just love these characters. I love how it's so bleak, and it is a horrible story, but I like revisiting it, and I like discussing the characters. I like analysing all of it, and yeah, I never get bored of it at all. I'm always like just really happy to dissect it.
Yeah.
I'm finally happy we did it.
Finally. So we're going to do Children of the Corn next year?
No.
All of them?
No.
No, we're not. I don't want to do that.
No. We have an idea for what our project will be next year. Stephen King.
Which we'll have to wait till next year for that one. But I've really enjoyed rewatching these. Like I said, they're not ones that, especially the first one's not a film I go back to very often. Doctor Sleep, even though I read the book and really enjoy it, it's only the second time I've watched the movie. I'm more likely to go back to something like Pet Sematary or Salem's Lot. But this has been really fun.
Do you mean Pet Sematary 2 specifically? Oh no. No, it's such an atrocity. It's horrible.
If anyone's joining us on this one, go back to the first one when I reveal this atrocious print.
That is absolutely... I genuinely can't even make out what it was meant to be.
I can see Edward Furlong.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it's Edward Furlong there. It kind of looks like Edward Furlong today now.
But yeah, the first Pet Sematary I wouldn't say is a casual watch.
Oh no, it's definitely not. I love Pets. I've watched Pet Sematary 2 several times since making that video. I just genuinely enjoy it.
Yeah.
Looking back over the films that we've watched for this, I'm definitely more likely to put on the Shining miniseries just as a casual viewing. And I think when I next see a copy of Doctor Sleep on Blu-ray, I am going to add it to the collection. Rewatching it, maybe just... I always knew I enjoyed it and that it was a really good film. And I'm like, actually, this is a very, very good film.
So I don't think we should... We're not going to rank the films.
They're too different.
Because they're all different. But I think in terms of what am I most likely to casually put on, it would be the film, just because I have done that. Then the miniseries as a very close second, and then Doctor Sleep. Doctor Sleep is not a casual watch.
No, it's not. Anything with children in peril is difficult.
Yeah.
See it for me. It's like I said, I'd casually watch the miniseries again.
Mm-hmm. Same. Yeah.
Yeah. But that would be my first before jumping to the film. Mm-hmm. I also like to throw it off to our channel members. Thank you guys for supporting the channel. Hope you've been enjoying this.
Yeah.
This series. I'm surprised we managed to keep this going for 4 years.
I know.
Now, at some point we will. I do keep wondering, like, what do we do when we run out of the long running ones? We'll just have to do like collections of films. Maybe.
Like from Stephen King.
Yeah. We'll find a way. Thing is that there's always new Stephen King adaptations being made.
They're
just because it
always
works.
popping up. Yeah.
It works. Easy to adapt. But there are, not all Stephen King works are created equally. Not all adaptations are anyway.
That's true. That's fair to say.
That is fair. That is fair to say. So, you sure you not got any more notes on this one?
No, I don't think so.
Has anyone here seen Doctor Sleep? If so, what do you think about it? Do you think it would work as a mini-series, or do you think they should just leave it alone and keep it as the film that we have at the moment? Thanks a lot, guys, and we'll see you when we see you.
Bye.